Hello friends. Today let us talk about the early expansion of the Mughal Empire in India, and in order to do that we will have to talk about the careers of Babur and his son Humayun. Now, Babur and Humayun's career in India is interesting, and it can be said that Babur, who had established or who had laid the foundation of the Mughal Empire in India, Humayun almost lost that empire. However, he came back and then he was able to recapture the empire and re-establish the Mughal Empire in India, which was again taken forward by Humayun's son Akbar. And then we see the consolidation in the period of Akbar. We see the consolidation of the Mughal Empire in India. So let us talk about Babur a little bit. And Babur himself was born in Fargana, and right at the age of 12, all right at the age of 12 he became the ruler of Fargana. However, he was chased out of Fargana by his Uzbek relatives. Okay, Fargana, which is in Uzbekistan, his Uzbek relatives, Babur's Uzbek relatives, they chased him out of Fargana. And Babur, after years of roaming around in Central Asia, in West Asia, he decided to invade India. All right, and India at the time, at that particular period of time, was ruled by the Lodis. And Babur fought his first battle in India, okay, and the first decisive battle in India. Babur fought it with the last of the Lodi rulers of Delhi, last of the Lodi sultans of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi. Now, this battle has been a very important battle in the history of India. It is known as the first battle of Panipat. Okay, and in the first battle of Panipat, the superiority of Babur's army was established because Babur used artillery. Babur used a separate department of the army, artillery. He deployed gunpowder in India through his artillery division, and this was something quite novel for the Indian army and the native army of India, which was organized by the Lodis. They could not, they could not match up to the artillery barrages of the Mughals, and therefore, in the first battle of Panipat, we see that the Mughals won a decisive victory against the Lodis. Also, another very important technique, which is known as the Tulugma technique. Tulugma technique, a Central Asian technique of warfare where you divide your army into phalanxes, and then your phalanxes advance separately and surround your enemies from the sides, while your central central division of your army, it crushes the opposing army from the front. Now these kind of techniques were also deployed during the first battle of Panipat, and therefore the Lodis proved no match to Babur's capacity for warfare. All right, and we see that Babur gained a decisive victory in Panipat, and he crowned himself the emperor of Hindustan. Okay, he named himself Padshah, or the emperor of Hindustan. And from there on, we also see that Babur, again came into conflict with the Ranas of Mewar. All right, and in the battle of Khanwa, all right, the battle of Khanwa between Rana Sanga or Maharana Sangram Singh, the battle of Khanwa fought between Rana Sanga and Babur, is also a very important battle which was fought during this period of time when Babur was trying to expand his empire in India. And the battle of Khanwa also proved decisive in the favor of Babur, and therefore Babur was able to defeat the Rajputs also. Okay, so Babur was able to take care of the Rajput element. However, lastly, we should also remember that the Afghan element in India, had not been completely subdued, and the Afghan element in India were again, again rose up in the form of Mahmud Lodi, who took up the Lodi cause and who again, fought with Babur, and in the battle of Ghaggar, Babur decisively defeated Mahmud Lodi also, and he was therefore by 1529 he was therefore the undisputed power in India. Okay, so Babur proved to be undisputed in all of the conflicts that he fought, and all of his exploits and all of his exploits in India and all of the socio-economic condition of India at that particular period of time was noted down by Babur in the Baburnama, which was written in his native language of Chagtai Turki, that is the Turkish language. Okay, and in it he he wrote down about his exploits in India, his advances in India, and also the socio-economic milieu of India at that particular point of time. A very important book when we have to take references about the history of that period of time in India. All right. So therefore, we see that Babur was, instrumental in laying down a very firm foundation of the Mughal Empire in India, and this can be seen as the beginning of the Mughal Empire in India. However, right with the beginning of Humayun's rule in 1530, that is 1 year after the Battle of Ghaggar, when Babur dies and Humayun comes up to the throne of Delhi, we see that the empire is almost lost by Humayun, and for that we also have to look into the other part of this video. Now, while talking about Humayun, we should understand that he was not gifted, the empire on a platter of roses, all right. Humayun had to fight for the empire because he was surrounded from all sides, Humayun, when he came to power at Delhi. So, Humayun had to fight with the Afghans from Bengal and Bihar. He also had to fight with Rajputana, and Humayun also had to fight with Bahadur Shah of Gujarat. And while talking about the conflicts of Humayun, you see the conflict that takes center stage is that between Humayun and Sher Shah. Now, Sher Shah, who had risen up, by leaps and bounds in the ranks of the Afghan, had become a ruler in his own right, and Humayun had to fight Sher Shah in order to, in order to lay the foundation, not lay the foundation, of course, but in order to consolidate the empire which had been handed down to him by Babur. So, Humayun and Sher Shah came into conflict first at Chausa. All right, and in this battle, in the battle of Chausa, we see that Sher Shah, or Sher Khan at that point of time, because Sher Shah had not yet adopted the title of Sher Shah, but he was known as Sher Khan. He, obliterated Humayun's army, and Humayun was completely and utterly defeated. All right, and after defeating Humayun, he took on the name of Sher Shah, and he proclaimed himself the ruler at Delhi. All right, he proclaimed himself the ruler of Delhi. He proclaimed himself the ruler of India. The very next year, he again came in conflict with Sher Shah in the Battle of Bilgram, which is also known as the Battle of Kannauj, where Sher Shah again was able to defeat Humayun, and Humayun was left to wander in the deserts of Sindh. And it is in Sindh, it is said that Humayun met Bairam Khan, to whom he entrusted the responsibility for his son Akbar. And Akbar himself was born at the house of the Raja of Amarkot. All right, and from Sindh, Humayun proceeded onwards to Persia, and in Persia, he got in contact with the Shah of Persia. Okay, Shah Tahmasp, and he tried to forge an alliance with the Shah of Persia, and the Shah of Persia, or the Shah of Iran, gave him an option, and the option was that he should convert to the Shia Muslim faith, and he should gain his brothers' provinces of Kandahar and give it to the Shah of Persia, and then alone the Shah would help him to come back and recapture India. Okay, help him logistically and help him with an army to come back and recapture India. And so Humayun complied with this offer, and Humayun again came back to India. And this time, however, we see that Sher Shah had died, and the empire that Sher Shah had created had had descended into turmoil. All right, and Sher Shah's progeny, the successors of Sher Shah, could not hold on to Sher Shah's empire, and we see that Islam Shah, who was the last of the Suri rulers was utterly defeated by Humayun, and Humayun was able to establish the empire, the again re-establish the Mughal empire in India. All right. However, Humayun did not live long enough to enjoy the empire which he had regained again, and Humayun died the very next year. He died when he fell down from the stairs from the staircase of his library at Jahanpana, which is the city which he had established in Delhi. Okay, so he fell down from the stairs of his library and he died. And Akbar, who was already deployed at the front lines fighting against the enemies of the Mughal, Akbar was promptly crowned the king of the empire by Bairam Khan, and thus began the rule of Akbar. So I hope that the rule on and adventures of Babur and Humayun are quite clear to you. There are certain battles that you have to remember because these formed a very important portions of their careers in India, and we also have to remember that Humayun's empire and you see Humayun's career itself cannot be seen in separation from that of Sher Shah's. All right. So this is in you see, this is in brief the history of Babur and Humayun and their expansion into India. And with that, I hope that you will be studying hard. Take care. Goodbye.